Back at it again with the Mobius Dickus, chapter 47, The Mapmaker. So there's really only one passage I want to go over in this brief chapter, which is, of course, the famous loom analogy. Now, I'm not going to lie, my listeners, all right? Did I try to understand the various parts of the loom? The warp, the woof, the shuttle? Yes. Am I completely incompetent at trying to understand this? Yes. Suffice it to say, I cannot fully explain this analogy because I tried to study looms and I just couldn't. I both couldn't understand and couldn't care, because the point being made by this passage is rather clear when it says, "There lay the fixed threads of the warp subject to but one single ever-returning unchanging vibration, and that vibration merely enough to admit of the crosswise interblending of other threads with its own. This warp, the kind of unchanging, more dominant structure of the loom, is necessity, determinism, the idea that your choices don't matter, or at least that you're not in control of your choices. And here, thought I, with my own hand I ply my own shuttle and weave my own destiny into these unalterable threads." So my understanding might be wrong, but if the warp is kind of the more dominant pattern within something you're weaving, then the woof is the thing which cross threads with that in order to create some kind of discernible pattern. Because if you're using the long ways version, the warp, you have the same color thread, whereas you're weaving a different color within that main color in order to create some kind of image. So meantime, Queequeg's impulsive indifferent sword, sometimes hitting the woof slantingly or crookedly or strongly or weakly as the case might be, and by this difference in the concluding blow producing a corresponding contrast in the final aspect of the completed fabric. So apparently this sword is somehow used to straighten out or to keep steady the warp as the woof is moved through it. And I want to get away from looms as quickly as possible, because the interesting thing here is that obviously the analogy is made that this easy, indifferent sword must be chance, chance, free will, and necessity, all interweavingly working together. The straight warp of necessity not to be swerved from its ultimate course, its every alternating vibration indeed only tending to that. Free will still free to ply her shuttle between given threads, and chance, though restrained in its play by the right lines of necessity and sideways in its motions directed by free will, though thus prescribed by both, chance by turns rules either, and has the least featuring blow at events. So I think, this isn't a passage which brings up new ideas. Mankind has been wondering about the interweaving of fate, free will, and chance for as long as people have told stories. I'm not sure that this chapter tells us anything more conclusive about this ambiguous idea. I'm not sure it clarifies anything, except to perhaps say that those people who think that only their choice matters, or only free will is true, or only necessity or fate is true, or only all things are the product of chance, are probably oversimplifying what is ultimately a complex loom, not necessarily in terms of our certainty that those three things operate together, but I think ultimately, like so many passages in Moby Dick, this is a passage about the difficulty of knowledge and how you would even tell. If you were to just look at fabric that had been weaved together using those three things, how could you tell which part was made by what force? Wouldn't you only have one product in the end? And obviously that product is the human experience. And the question of which part contributed to which pattern within the loom is a difficult question, an ambiguous question, which this passage certainly seems to acknowledge.